Brett?
Commissioner Brown,
Present.
Shalet,
Present.
Pickens, Smith,
Here.
Velasquez, Vice Chairman Fuller,
Present.
Chairman Vieira.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Fuller, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please rise. Face our flag with your right hand over your heart and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, no presentations, public business from the floor, agendized items. I have no cards. Okay. We'll move on to the consent calendar. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the 10th of July, 2013?
So moved.
Any discussion, question, comments?
Second.
Oops. Thank you. Can we move on to new business? Discussion and possible action regarding the City of Lancaster's ordinance relating to fireworks. I believe Lee Smith, Mr. Smith, did you ask that this be on the agenda? Or? Okay.
That was relative to the article. That was relative to the article that we saw in the paper shortly after the 4th of July, where Palmdale had a significant number of arrests or citations for the illegal fireworks, and Lancaster had 0. So we were I wanted to put on the agenda to see if we could discuss how we could get a closer monitoring or laws related to Palmdale's versus Lancaster's.
Comments, questions from the commission?
The document then that we were provided is the current Lancaster Municipal Code. Is that correct? Okay.
I guess the question or comment that I would have is, and maybe you, Mr. Drinkle, maybe you could respond to this, is that what do we currently have in the city of Lancaster? I mean, do we have a structure in place? Is this something new, different?
No, I think what it is if we're talking as it relates to some other cities and how specific their ordinance is as it relates to penalty phase, I think the biggest difference you see, we have an ordinance as it relates to fireworks within the city. There is flexibility based on how that's enforced, okay, and the degree it's enforced through a progressive scale. As with most municipal codes, it's based on a violation or a sequence of violations with a minimum standard fine that's aggravated over time and enhanced based on violation. I will tell you this, what happened this specific 4th of July, we had 40,000 people at the fairgrounds, okay, and there was a heck of a show there, and I don't even know how many people we had parked in the area of the desert around there. And I will tell you that we did see some things happening in town, okay, that we could see from the fairgrounds, not a greatly reduced number than what we've seen in the past, to be quite frank with you. The other thing is that it's one thing to, we mobilized, we had 30, what we have, Pat, at the fairgrounds, about 30 guys. We had 30 deputy sheriffs based on the crowd we had there and our setup at that venue. And then we had patrol function out throughout the city. But getting to a location and then enforcing it and catching people in the act of it is a little bit different. The other thing is with some other cities that I've seen with that significant fine structure, it's like where you make a differentiating between fireworks that are just illegal, period, okay, and then you have a lesser degree to some qualified fireworks that aren't illegal but aren't legal to use in our city. There's a differentiation. So there's some discretion by the officers based on who they're talking to. Laws will say there's very few laws in the penal code or the municipal code or in the Code of Federal Regulations that says you shall enforce it. It's it's discretionary. I think it wasn't from a lack of resources out there. We had a heck of a show at the fairgrounds, and it's become pretty popular. So we have a significant number of people within our own community that are attending that. That's not to say we don't have issues that are happening throughout the city, and maybe we can look at that more from a resource management conversation the captain and I can have, and maybe some help from the CHP, because the CHP had a heck of a handle on the freeway there because we had some issues there as it related to the show that we had at the fairgrounds, and talk about that more. Again, it's the commission's prerogative. If the commission would like to come up and develop an ordinance that's more in line with other communities that we think is, that you as a commission think is necessary, then by all means, let's go that direction and examine it similar to what we've done in the past with other ordinances, if that's what the commission so desires to do.
I would like to look at it because from what the newspaper was saying, Palmdale's was a minimum of $2,500 first offense. Lancaster's is $100, not to exceed $200 for the first offense, up to $500 for the second offense. Some of these fireworks alone cost $100 just to shoot it once in the air. I don't think that's going to deter them, but I think $2,500, a pop might be more significant. And I had several people come up to me just right after, I asked for that and saying thank you, because our neighborhoods after the fireworks show, later on into midnight and 1 and 2 were like war zones.
I would agree with that. I'm saying, again, it's your prerogative as a commission. If that's something you believe, and, again, the Sheriff's Department can weigh in on that. And, again, no one's denying that there were issues that were occurring out in the community. Those are valid. It's a response, and there's some things that go along with that. Now, based on their enforcement, they didn't have to take resources and put them at an event that we do. I mean, we can't. It's a fiscal management issue, too. We can't put 200 deputy sheriffs out in the street for fireworks enforcement on the 4th of July. It's just not feasible. But if that's the direction the commission would like to go and make that recommendation for the council's decision, I'm happy to work with you on anything you got, any direction that you would like to go.
It wasn't talking about allocation of resources more than the penalty if they did, because I'm not saying that they would have to go and do those, but if it was in the newspaper that you're going to get possible $2,500 for doing this, that might be one of the resources that we have in addition to the staff. So I would like to explore this as far as what we can do to have a similar ordinance to other communities.
Okay. Then what I would recommend at this time that Lee Smith and then Lee Dorico as well, and maybe with the Sheriff's Department and Highway Patrol, if they're available, to look at this further and bring back for another discussion at another meeting. The comment that I would share is a concern with the spreading of resources and the burden that it could possibly lead on law enforcement as we currently have it. So just to weigh that in as those discussions take place, as well as how thin can you go and trying to reach that objective of keeping our community safe as well.
So could I, direction, Mr. Chairman, from, I'll look at some other cities as well throughout Los Angeles County, if that's okay with the commission to do that. So we look at some other examples. There's some other cities, too, that we've talked to in the past that just the structure of their ordinance is preferred to look at. So I want to have, if it's okay with you, to have some flexibility to look at some different things. Because there's a lot of cities that have specific ordinances as it relates to this issue.
Sure. Other suggestions, recommendations, comments from other commissioners?
On topic, but not specifically, and I think that, Lee, when you're doing that, obviously Commissioner Smith would like to be involved and could help bring that back to the commission with your concerns as well as whatever the consensus is for what makes sense to go forward. But and so I would support that. I think that's a great idea. I do want to comment, though, and I think we touched upon that in our last meeting because it was immediately following the 4th of July. But as Mr. Dorico had stated, that we had 40,000 people out at the fairgrounds, and I just would like to once again thank not just the Sheriff's Department, but certainly the Sheriff's Department and the personnel from the City of Lancaster, an outstanding job that was done out there. We had no incidents of note with that number of people all in one place, and it's different than any other event that's done in the Antelope Valley, including the Antelope Valley Fair itself, which is fast approaching, where everybody showing up at the same time and leaving at the same time and dealing with all the issues that that might create. And I think that, at least from my own perspective, one of the things that I noted and I appreciated as both being on the board of directors of the Antelope Valley Fair and also a citizen of the Antelope Valley is that the presence was a helpful presence rather than a punitive one. In that what I saw our city personnel doing, what I saw our sheriff's department doing during those events was helping people and allowing things to work the way they should be and keeping people out of trouble rather than looking for a problem that has been then sometimes might escalate at that point in time. So just congratulations on a job well done for that night, and certainly we are grown accustomed to that at the fair in general and looking forward to that sort of a presence as we move into the Antelope Valley Fair here starting this Friday.
Okay, thank you. There's no other comments. We'll go ahead and move on to staff presentations, updates, and reports. And we'll start with monthly crime stats. Mr. Cobalt?
Thank you, Chairman Vieira. This measurement period will be from June 30th through August 3rd, 2013. This is the preliminary data for the weeks 27 through 31. Our low range for Part 1 crimes was 65 in week 27. Our high was 90 in week 31. You can see within the scope of arrests, our peak week was week 30 with 220 total arrests. The numbers for week 31, which is showing the lowest, are probably incomplete numbers. So our lowest week was, in all likelihood, really week 29 with 171 arrests. As we take a look at the data presented in this report versus the data presented in the last report, for July of 2013, we reported a weekly average of 66.75 for that measurement period, as well as a median of 68. For this reporting period, we had a weekly average of 78.2 Part 1 crimes with a weekly median of 82. As we take a look at month-to-month comparisons over the last year, basically about 10 of the last 12 months we've come in lower than the month in the previous year, so that's good news. July 2013 to July 2012, we're down 3%. Our current, as of the end of July, our current Part 1 crime rate is 267, the 0.10 compared to the crime rate at the end of 2012, which was 279. So we're doing well in that regard as well. As we take a look at the most active reporting districts in the city, 1135 had 44 Part 1 crimes, 1127 had 40, 1132 had 39, 1126 had 38, and 1137 had 34. To show you how that lays out on the map, this is 1135, which runs basically from Avenue H down to Avenue J, from Challenger Way over to 30th Street East. You can see the highest density for this area is around Avenue J, between basically Challenger Way and 20th Street East. (1127) runs basically from 20th Street West over to about 60th Street West, from Avenue I down to basically Avenue K. Our highest density for this area was Valley Central Way, which is pretty typical for this area. We also had a few burglaries and larcenies in the surrounding area. During this time of the year, we're probably going to see burglaries pick up just a little bit. That's been kind of our historic trend. Right before school starts, we see a little bit of elevation in both burglaries and larcenies. And then once school starts up again, things kind of settle down just a little bit. (1132) is a little more constant. Probably the biggest highest area of density runs from basically Challenger Way and Avenue J to the northwest just a little bit. You can see that red density in there, and then the areas that surround it in the orange. 1126 runs basically from Avenue J down to Avenue M, from 10th Street West to 20th Street West. Our highest density in that area is pretty consistent, and that's 10th Street West and Avenue K. We also see some activity over by the Sunridge Apartments over here. Finally, 1137 is kind of the area below 1135, which was our first reporting district. You can see the highest density area runs basically from Challenger way over to 20th Street East, from Avenue J down to Avenue K, and everything pretty much levels out after that. For residential burglaries, you can see that 1137 led the way with 10, followed by 1132 of 9 and 6 and 1127. Larcenies involving vehicles, 1137 had 7, 1133 had 4, and 1135 had 5. So we take a look at the trends over the last 52 weeks, what's doing what by Part 1 crime category. You can see rape is showing a slight uptick. The issue with regard to rape is that it's again a relatively low frequency crime for us, and when you have a week where you have 3 or 4, then that really elevates the graph. Assault, you can see that we are showing an upward trend in assaults, but our highest range or frequency was 14, and that's still below our baseline of 15.09. With burglary, you can see we've had probably 5 weeks in the last 52 weeks that we went over the baseline. All of the other weeks are below it, but again, we're still seeing a little bit of an uptick with regard to burglary, and of course, again, that's primarily due to the summertime. As far as larcenies go, we still have a slight uptick with that, but again, we're pretty much below the baseline and have been below the baseline since about week 17 of this year, and this measures us all the way up to week 31. Homicide showing a downward trend, but again, that's a relatively low frequency for us. We've had a total of 5 showing up so far this year. As far as robberies go, we're showing a downward trend there as well. Now, we do have a few more weeks that are above the baseline, but overall we're staying below the baseline and showing a downward trend, particularly with as we compare it to the earlier parts of this 52-week period. We take a look at grand theft auto. Almost all of our, particularly during the course of this year, almost everything has been below the baseline. You can see on the blue line up here where the baseline is, and you can see the area down here. We're just doing pretty well when it comes to grand theft auto. Also with arson, you can see a downward trend, although we did have a week where we had 3 in week 31. This is the way that the Part 1 crimes laid out across the city during this reporting period. This is the spatial trend analysis that shows us where crime went up and where crime went down geographically around the city. This is our repeat call report, and Chairman or Commissioner Fuller, we did make sure that you all received copies of that report as requested last month. These are how the Part 1 crimes lay out across, the repeat calls for service lay out across the city. Probably the new locations that are popping up on here include the Metrolink station, 7-Eleven down on Avenue J. The Arco down on Lancaster Boulevard had been off for quite a while. It seems to have found its way back on there, and I think that's pretty much it. And this is our forecast for this month. We're forecasting 371 Part 1 crimes. You can see at the bottom down there our estimate for last reporting period was 351. We had an actual of 384, which gave us a 91% accuracy rate. And that's all I've got. Questions?
Just that I'd like to thank you for providing us with the repeat calls report. I did notice it was there, and my eyes thank you as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jim. We'll move on to the arrest statistics, LA County Sheriff Department, Deputy Ruiz.
Good morning, members of the commission, ladies and gentlemen. In summary, July was a pretty steady month for all of our specialized units, and with noteworthy arrests as follows. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our top and core team had, for Part 1 crime arrest, 15, along with Part 2 crimes of 123, which is pretty significant. Parolees within those numbers that were arrested were 16 for a total count of 138. One of the specific incidents where they had a very notable arrest was on the 17th of July. The top core team responded to an actual nearby call for service that they were coincidentally by. And the call was basically a suspect that was running into a house with a firearm, unknown what the nature or the other information what that was. When the team arrived, after further investigation, there was only one person inside the house, and it turned out to be discovered 4 pounds of methamphetamine, scales, narcotics, packing supplies, approximately $16,000 in cash. That was a rifle that was called in also, and there was some other vehicles that were seized, believing that the suspect was obviously in the sales business for methamphetamine. That's a significant amount, so that's a pretty good amount to take home. Took him off the streets. Also, in going with Mr. Cobalt's statistics on Valley Central Way, they also did an anti-theft operation as far as being undercover inside the Valley Central Way Walmart, and also they make that public to let all the consumers know, or all those thieves or people who think they want to do some sort of shoplifting in the retail shops in Lancaster. They made some significant arrests also, and that was on the 30th of July. The next team was a burglary suppression team. Also had very good statistics, pretty steady also. Felony arrests, 31 of those, 2 of them were parolees. Search warrants, they conducted 8. Warrant arrests were 13, identified and made Ramey warrants for 16. No doubt those will also be future arrests. $17,000, over $17,000 of property was recovered. That's significant from the previous month, which was $6,000. 5 firearms were recovered. One of the big arrests that was noteworthy was on Tuesday, the 16th of July. They had warrants for 3 locations out in the Lancaster area, which resulted in the recovery of 5 firearms, in addition to a good chunk of that $17,000 worth of property. And they made 3 juvenile arrests and 2 adult arrests. So, and it was a stolen vehicle that was recovered from the city of Hawthorne. So kudos to the burglary suppression team also. The Lancap team, also noteworthy, they had 32 felony arrests, so they were definitely going for the big fish. No misdemeanor arrests that month. But firearms were recovered were 2 of those 32 arrests. 3 of them were parolees. Illegal narcotics value was estimated about over $3,000. And on this incident specifically, it was pictured, was recovered on an arrest that they made on the 18th of July. It was a parolee compliance check. During that time, they recovered 24 grams of heroin, 17 grams of methamphetamine, and 4 adults were arrested out of that location. 2 of those adults were on active parole, and there were gang members with a notorious Lancas gang out here in the area, but now they're behind bars. So we're happy to hear that. And the narcotics team also had a little bit slower month than before, but we're still significantly active. Patrol had 99 felony arrests compared to the crew had 2. However, the cocaine bust was pretty significant with what the crew was doing, as well as marijuana bust. You can see an increase of how many of those arrests that they've made, how much illegal narcotics was seized. 4 firearms were recovered, and they executed 5 search warrants. And that's a picture of some of the narcotics that was recovered. Also, in the month of July, on the next slide, we had our champions pictured in there, a combination of Lancaster and Palmdale deputies who won the 2013 Guns N' Roses, Guns N' Hoses. There might have been roses because there were no hoses anyways. Unfortunately, the fire department wasn't able to field a team, so we might as well call them roses. Game 1, there's the results there. Captain, sorry, you put a good effort out there, but we just put some runs, a couple more runs on you. So we beat CHP 10-8. And then Game 2, we held on and beat Corrections, who's actually year in, year out, a really good, solid team. So we're happy to bring the trophy back home to the Sheriff's Department, where it belongs. So we're looking forward to next year. And then I was hoping that the city manager would be here, Mr. Bozigian, for my next slide, where I can say that the Dodgers' magic number is now 37 until they go to the playoffs. So I know he's a big Dodger fan, so I was hoping he'd see that. But that concludes my report, unless we have any other questions. Good.
I think next month, can we get the fire department here to defend themselves from Guns and Hoses smack talk?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. California Highway Patrol update. Commander Jacobs. Good morning.
I must start off with the congratulations to the Sheriff's Department for their wins and the captain's playing ability. I was there as a cheerleader only instead of playing like this captain was, so you guys did a great job. We look at our fatal accident picture, and we are up by 1 from last month, and we are down, fortunately, on our DUI PCF accidents. We are up on our DUI arrests, and we are up with our citations as well as our motorist services. So we're doing a pretty good job there. Last month we talked about we're open for applications, so it's a very short window. It's going to be September 12th through September 14th, and it's going to be at www.chpcareers.com. And we're looking for people who are 20 to 35. They have to be a U.S. citizen, have a high school diploma, and of course, no felonies. So if there's any questions about this, our cadet hiring unit can be contacted at area code 916-843-3760. And then I wanted to remind everybody that August is Purple Ribbon Month with Caitlin's Law. It's surprising about the number of people that actually forget their children in their car, and they lock up and they go in to do whatever they're going to do, and they forget that their children are in the car. And I know all of us are saying, how can you forget your child in your car? But we live in a society where we're constantly bombarded by our text messages and our cell phones and people talking to us and people cutting us off while we're driving. And so it's very easy to lose focus. And so we just want everybody to remember to look before you lock. Do not leave your children in the car, especially someplace like the Antelope Valley where we triple digits throughout the summer. Very, very dangerous. So that is our safety message for the month. Thank you. Unless you have any questions?
I do have a question. You say that the fatal accidents are up by 1. From what to what?
Oh, from 2 to 3.
Oh, so we had 3?
We do, and you know what's interesting about the fatal picture in the Antelope Valley is in a lot of places you can see the trend. It's DUI or it's speed or it's a particular area. Out here, it's very odd. There is no one thing that we can point to and say it's because of drugs or it's because of alcohol or it's because of speed on this particular roadway. It is just all over the place, and I wish we had the personnel to spread people out. I know I just did a community service survey, and one of the things that was pointed out to me is we just don't have enough patrol at Lake LA. And the bottom line is I don't have the personnel to send somebody out there and patrol it on a regular basis. So we do the best they can with the resources that we have, but I certainly understand the community's concerns.
The 3 fatalities, were they surface streets, highways, freeway?
It was all. We had one on Angeles Forest, we had one on the 14, and we had one on Avenue T. And then, I'll say interesting, I don't mean it in a bad way, is the accident on Avenue T, the driver was approaching a vehicle that was stopped for a turn, and he was going too fast. And so instead of slamming on his brakes, maybe swerving to the right, he swerved to the left into oncoming traffic, and was a head-on collision with a stake-bred truck. He lost his life, but he had a child in the car, in a child seat, properly belted. The child is perfectly okay. So that really brings home the message of take care of your children, make sure that you use proper safety equipment. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander.
David, on a personal note, I want to thank the CHP coming back from vacation last Sunday night, 11 p.m. My Chrysler 300 overheated, and so I was stranded on the freeway on the 14 by Escondido, where we were up against the mountains, and called, and they called AAA, and then CHP. I called after about 30 minutes to see if anyone was patrolling, because it was kind of scary out there at that night with cars zooming by, and they responded and came and visited with us for a while. They had a call and had to leave, but it was interesting that they told us to get back in the car, get on the passenger side, put our seatbelts on, because that was the safest place to be. And I said, well, I'd feel a lot safer about 100 yards down away from my car. So that was interesting to know that that was the safest place to be, on the roadside, buckled on the passenger side. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to District Attorney update. Head Deputy District Attorney, Mr. John Morris.
All right. Good morning, everybody. After 3 months of declines, unfortunately, this month we had an increase in July of criminal cases filed. That's comparing 2012 to 2013 numbers. The increase was from 141 cases filed, felony cases filed in 2012 July, to this July it was 152 cases, which constituted an 8% increase. Now that bucks the trend of the previous 3 months where we had year-to-year decreases, and I don't have a good reason for why that occurred. It could just be a statistical anomaly. It could be my filing deputies had too much coffee that month and got more aggressive. But on a different area, what we continue to do, and I've implemented approximately a month and a half ago, is we are continuing to aggressively prosecute the residential burglaries that are happening in the Antelope Valley. Every case has to have my approval if the sentence is something less than state prison. I feel that every burglar should go to state prison. And quite frankly, the reason is people should be able to go to work or leave their home without being burglarized. So we're going to continue that. We have had several cases come in over the last month, which I've taken and specially assigned to prosecutors so they can vertically prosecute it from the time of filing all the way through sentencing. And that way I think we can, again, increase our conviction percentage on those cases which we treat as serious and violent felonies. Okay.
Questions? Thank you very much. And Business Watch Subcommittee Public Safety Update, Mr. Drico.
Thank you, Chairman Vera. Just an update on as concerned to Business Watch. They completed the BIG program, Business Improvement Group program, that at area number 1, which was at 10th Street West and Avenue K in the shopping centers, that area, where they identified 88 businesses and shared strategies among the businesses and networked through them for strategies to deal with issues specifically to quality of life issues, the transient population, panhandling, and then mostly importantly larcenies and theft prevention. We're now, Tracy has sent out letters to Area 2, which is Valley Central Way from Avenue J to Avenue I, where there's 72 businesses that have been identified in that area that we're going to be making contact with through this letter and get that group together. And we'll develop eventually to all 4 groups we've identified through the city. And as you can see through Jim's mapping, that's, the concentration of most of issues that we see in our community are directly correlated to those centers around town. We just had National Night Out celebration, the Public Safety Fair, last Thursday night at American Heroes Park. It was really well represented from the Sheriff's Department, the CHP, Department of Corrections, the Fire Department. We had a ton of service organizations that were out there. This year, we moved it to American Heroes Park, where historically it's been at Pierre Bain Park at 5th East and I, because we wanted to incorporate it more into the farmers market and the occurrences on downtown with the concert series and everything occurring downtown Lancaster. And I thought it was a good move. I mean, it was a really good location for the community surrounding the park. We had some things for children and a crayon contest. Target was the overall sponsor for the event, but we had participation from other community partners with Walmart and Red Cross, and it was really good. So that Jennifer's done a great job with that, coordinating that. She coordinates our event stuff with our park staff and our park department and public works. We couldn't do it without them either. It was really good. Tomorrow night is the Area 3 meeting for Neighborhood Watch block captains, and that group will be here at City Hall and the council chambers at 6 o'clock, if you'd like to attend. Then we're getting into our 90 days of fun with our event season for the city. We work very closely along with planning for parades and city events, and our next one is going to be Celebrate America down here on the boulevard. It'll be coming up. I'll make sure all that gets on your calendars as well. It's a great event. It's going to be well represented. We've got Deputy Ruiz with his activity as a Marine Corps Reserve. We're going to get some apparatus from the Marine Corps, and I'd like to get the ROTC kids from the different schools in Lancaster for representation for that. That's a really good event. Just some things I want to talk about that we're really involved with now in our office. We're really working closely with the court on restitution recovery as it relates to individuals, especially mostly for graffiti vandalism. The Sheriff's Department's been very effective at managing those cases. We've had a reduction for a period of time now in some of the graffiti cases that we've been managing. But the issue we get is there's a disconnect beyond the scope of sentencing and compliance with their conditions of the court and actually paying us. And again, I've mentioned this before, we have these ridiculous repayment orders. Someone owes us $40,000, but they get a conditional order for a payment agreement for $10 a month. Obviously, that's not effective, and they can't even pay that. So what we're doing now is auditing those cases with the court, pulling that direction from the court, what was their court-ordered restitution, and then we're going to seek some type of remedy beyond the scope of that. And we're going to be very aggressive about it. The next thing is that I just want to make a comment on, Miguel gets up and talks about some of the statistics, and that's pretty impressive statistic from Patrol for 99 narcotics arrests based on handling calls and the volume of activity at the station. Are we still the #1 busiest station for calls in the county and arrests, or where are we at?
If we're not #1, we're very close.
Yeah, so I mean, with the activity level and out there, Patrol's doing a good job. But on top of that, with our task force teams, just the responsiveness, the top core team has done 459 parole compliance checks since January 1st. I mean, that's pretty proactive work going on out there from our particular teams as a resource specific to our cities. It relates to different programs, that are coming to light based on CDCR as well as the Department of Probation. So on top of all the other things they do with us as far as Neighborhood Watch and other responsibilities that they're done. The burglary team is still, I can't even tell you. I mean, statistically, I would challenge that anywhere in the county. Their solvency rate is unbelievable comparably. That's a very difficult crime to investigate and manage. It's very cumbersome, and it takes a lot of legwork to put those cases together. And I think lastly, the responsiveness of the LANCAP team. And I think we don't talk about that as much as we probably should. But the fact is, those deputies, their sergeant, they work at night, they work through weekends. That recent shooting we had at the mobile home park, they have already got that suspect in custody in a matter of days based on the work that they do. And just to give you an example, at National Night Out, a lady came up to us and complained about a person that she believed was manufacturing methamphetamine. Sergeant Owen and them just happened to be working that night. Based on a phone call, they did some preliminary work, and they actually had a gentleman in custody with a significant amount of methamphetamine before the night was over, in one night. So I just want to commend, that relationship we have between all the agencies and how we operate here. I don't think is comparable to any place I've ever been. And so, we shared some of this last night with the council and some of the things that we're involved in and the work this commission's doing. And so I just appreciate that and appreciate the work everybody's doing, and it makes us look good.
Is that on now? Oh, there it is. You're talking about going after the restitution for the graffiti, and is that for adults? Is it for juveniles? Is it the parents of the juveniles? Because typically the restitution is ordered against the juvenile, like you say, $10 a month is not going to, and they don't pay that. So is it civilly against the parents? Is that what we're looking at?
No, it's actually ordered from the court, and it's both, adult and juveniles. But we have some individuals that are, depends on the court. You know, we have some judges over there that immediate upon sentencing, they order to be paid. And then we don't have consistency based on some of the preliminary work that's being given to the court as far as identifying. A lot of the juvenile cases are managed with probation based on the assessment of that individual, and they develop the repayment agreement, and we do that through their restitution unit. And then we have some disagreement on some of these things. They have a formula they use to base the person's ability to pay, but we all know you owe $40,000 and you can only be on summary probation for 5 years. It doesn't extend beyond that unless we physically go get it extended for some cooperation with the court. That doesn't make sense. Okay? I mean, the amount of money that the community is spending on just graffiti vandalism, if you took that money away and were able to put it in programs in a proactive model for more preventative measures, is unbelievable if you look at that. So even though it's a low-level considered crime, when it comes to the fact that someone's been convicted and now we're getting into the position of how we're going to manage their repayment back, because it's the community's money. Okay, so that when we think about the city, we always think about, it's government, whatever. It's the community's money. This is money that's coming away from the community to deal with these issues. I think it needs to be a priority. We've had some challenges recently. We have a Supreme Court case that's pending that's going to solve, I think, a lot of these issues, but we really need to be together and everyone on the same page, whatever agencies are involved in this process, to ensure that people are living up to the standard that's required. The other thing is that people should be able to have their be a revocation of probation for non-payment, unless they come up with some magical thing. If you get a traffic ticket, they don't care. Okay, you're going to pay the ticket. Even if you go serve jail time now for a suspended license, the court still expects you to pay on the traffic side to pay your fine. You don't get released to your fine, and it's held against you with driver's license, all these things for non-payment. We ought to be able to come up with developing some system that there's penalties for the non-payment beyond the entity that's owed the money, or the victim, because we are the victim, to have to go back to court to try and seek some remedy for that. It's already a court order.
Right. Well, traditionally, it has been, like you say, court-ordered restitution, and then the probation department actually encourages civil suits against the parents or against as a separate remedy because the restitution is not being paid.
Right. I can see that does make sense, but you already have a document that's a court-ordered document. It should be a violation of a court order automatically because they didn't do it. Okay, and the parents are still responsible for what their juvenile child. We all are. We all have. Most of us have children. I have every expectation if my kid does something, I'm responsible for it. They better not do anything. But I'll be in jail. All right. Even they're older now, and it'll still happen. Okay. So I am saying that we have this mindset, and Dr. Vieira, I'll give you an example. At the school, the same thing. Textbooks. How many millions of dollars are spent every year by our school districts to replace textbooks, not by doing new versions, because people just don't turn them back in. I mean, we have this mindset that goes on and on and on, and it's all resource drain. Other things we could be doing. This one is an example. There's over 200 individuals that owe money to this community for committing crime in our community that they were already court-ordered to pay. So that's what we're working on. And the court's been amazing. Okay, truthfully, the court clerks, this is not something it's not within their scope or duties, that they've actually worked together with us to develop this process and go and research all this to bring this forward so we can manage it. So I'll be bringing you an update on that.
Thank you.
Sorry about my soapbox.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, we'll move on. Public business from the floor, non-agendized items. We do have 2 speaker cards under non-agendized. Mr. David Paul.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. really enjoy coming here. I learned so much about what's going on, and I get to keep my finger on the pulse of things. And there's so much to do and so little resources to do it with. So sometimes our own personal problems can seem small, and I almost feel guilty for bringing my problems to you, but lately something happened that shook my faith in what's right. And I used to work in a shelter, sexually abused children, called Paulina House. I was given an award by President Ronald Reagan for their work. And I'm not unfamiliar with child abuse. If you took a poll and you said, who wants to make it harder to report child abuse, no one in their right mind would raise their hand. But there's this anonymous provision that allows you to report things. I have a dispute with a neighbor, and they called DCFS and told them that I had an 8-year-old boy, emaciated boy, chained in my yard. They had to come out to my house. Deputy Cox came, and he was pretty satisfied quickly. But then the social worker had to come into my house, and she was kind, she was wonderful, she was apologetic, and she even explained that cases that don't have any merit are the ones that are closed last, because the most serious ones have to be closed first. I understand all that. In the meantime, my family has been put through hell. So I want to know, and I give Jim a hard time all the time, but the stats and the facts, that's where you drill down to find the information. And I want to know if anybody keeps track of how many false anonymous reports are made as a weapon. Everybody knows that this happens all the time. But, you know, what do you do about it? You just have to suck it up and get through it. But I'm asking for help because I don't have all the answers. I don't know how to get a record unsealed. I don't know how to go about suing this guy civilly. But stuff like this can't go on. I mean, and the worst part about it, I don't know if it'll ever happen again. They have the liberty to just sling allegations, and I don't even know who's making them. Of course, I do, but you know, that's where I'm at. And I just want to know how often false reports are filed, how often that $1,000 civil fine is imposed. And so to save me a lot of time, I may be asking all you these kinds of questions, but you know, if you can help me at all, something has got to change. People use this as a weapon, and that's just not right. Thank you.
And our next speaker, Miss Ashley Fogel, I believe the last name is.
Hello.
Good morning.
Everyone. I just had a event happen at Antelope Valley Hospital's Women and Infant Pavilion, March 16, 2013, where I had a premature child, 19 weeks and 4 days gestation. The doctor told me that he would be dead and breech when he was born, contrary to what actually really happened. He was born alive, and he was head first. The hospital gave me a birth certificate to say that he was alive. He was born at 10/22, and he had no care. He was not treated at all. We stayed in a room with him for 2 hours after he was born, and he was still alive. He didn't leave a room until 12 o'clock. I have a picture with him him in the room at 11:32. And my issue is that I had to wait 31 days to bury my son because a doctor refused to sign the death certificate. I don't know what the issue was. I'm assuming they tried to pass him as a stillbirth. Whatever the information they were giving the mortuary, which is Hicks, it wasn't enough to bury him. We needed facts. And however, back to what I was saying, after he left the room or whatever, I never seen my son again. 4 o'clock that morning was a memory box presented to me and I asked, when did my son die? They were unable to tell me. So eventually, after everything was said and done, and they finally got a doctor to sign off on the death certificate, I got the death certificate. On the death certificate, it says that he passed away at 11:25. As you see, I still have a picture with him in the room with me at 11:32. I have a letter from the hospital stating that they had to re-educate their staff on bringing babies back to the mothers after they pass away. So how can he possibly pass away at 11:25 if he was still in the room with me at 11:32? I want a full investigation of Women and Infant Pavilion. Thank you for listening.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Commissioner comments? Any comments this afternoon?
Got to point out that we have the Antelope Valley Fair coming up. Hope to see everybody out there August 16th to the 25th, the 75th anniversary, and the theme is Diamonds Are Forever. And of course, on Saturday, we've got the parade on Lancaster Boulevard. It starts at 9 o'clock, 10th Street West, along the boulevard going east. So hope to see everybody out at the parade and at the fair.
Yeah, just to kind of back up what Tim said a while ago. Last Thursday night, I went down to the boulevard and spent some time with family. And it was my compliments to the city. It was very well organized and a lot of fun. But it was also a compliment to Sheriff's Office because I actually saw Captain there and several deputies, and it just was a safe feeling. Sometimes you go to events and you kind of like always looking over your shoulder, but it was very well organized, and my family felt very safe. So kudos to you guys.
Okay, thank you, and this meeting stands adjourned at approximately 10:59, and our next meeting is the 11th of September, 10 a.m. Thank you.